Good evening and welcome to this Pendle Council meeting of the West Craven Area Committee. Can I welcome you if you're joining us online? I'm just going to have to turn that sound off. And apologies for anybody that's submitted a question on the live chat. We've just been having a bit of a wrangle about that. I'm not sure whether that live chat is up yet, but if anybody's asked any questions, we'll be coming on to that in a little while and deal with those during public question time. Just to explain, this is a working meeting of a Pendle Council committee, and we have to follow various rules. I'm going to ask people to introduce themselves in a moment. I'm not just sure who's on and who's not, but some people are here as representatives of people the co-opted members can participate by proposing things, but legally they're not able to vote. We do have a couple of issues. We have to do declarations of interest, and this is where people, if they've got any prejudicial pecuniary interests, which means that they've got a direct financial interest in a matter, they have to declare it. Could I ask if any committee members have any such interest in any of tonight's agenda items? Nope, nobody's shouting. So if we can do introductions. My name's David Whip. I'm a councillor here in West Craven. I chair the area committee. And I'll ask people to introduce themselves in the order that they appear on my screen, which may not be the same as the order everybody else has got, but it makes sense to me. So I'm going to start with Mike Goulthorpe.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Goulthorpe. I'm the AB Ward Pendleborough Councillor.
Thank you. Joanne.
Joanne Ethel, Committee Administrator at Pendle Council, and I do have apologies from Councillor Marjorie Adams and Councillor Ken Hartley.
Thank you. Jennifer? You're muted, Jennifer.
Well, handicapped at the moment. Right, yeah. Jennifer Purcell, Craven Councillor for Pendleborough Council.
Thank you very much. Just to remind members to mute themselves when they're not speaking and then unmute themselves when they are. Neil?
Hello, Neil Wallin, local support officer for the police.
Thank you, Neil. We've got two Neils. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Neil, we've got a wonderful view of the top of your head. I'm not suggesting that the bottom half of your head is any better, but I mean, we like to see your lips move. So, thank you very much. Right, yes, I'm going to go to the other Neil now. Neil.
Sorry about apologies.
Watson. It's okay.
Good evening, Neil Watson. I'm Pendle's Planning Manager.
And Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Whip, Councillor for Cotswold.
Colin.
Yeah, you've just muted yourself.
Oh, yeah, Colin Carter, AB Ward Councillor.
Thank you. David Walker.
Good evening, David Walker, Environmental Services Manager, Pendleborough Council.
Thank you very much. And then on my screen, I've got, I like this one, Governor Pollard. Christine.
Christine Pollard, Salford Parish Council.
Thank you very much. And then on as a row of icons, I've got JM, which will be Jane Mills.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Jane Mills, Borough Councillor for Barnoldswick Cotswold.
Thank you. Rosemary.
Hi, Rosemary Carroll, Ward Councillor for Abbey Ward.
Thank you very much. As ever, Rosemary, you come with added noise.
Oh, it just adds to the ambience.
Well, I'm not sure that it adds much to the broadcasting, but there you go.
What you said, but there's no noise in here. I can't hear anything.
Okay, well, it just must be interference then.
Yeah.
And then, if we can ask you to mute, thank you. And Emma.
Hi, Emma West at Barnoldswick Town Council.
Thank you, Emma. And we've just had Peter Hampson join us.
Yeah, just bear with me. It's Peter Hampson, the Abbey Town Council. Sorry for the delay. I had problems getting in.
It's okay. We were delayed getting started, so you're not that late. But it has got to 10 past now, so I think we'll crack on with the meeting. There aren't any further apologies, are there? No. Thank you very much. Right, which brings us to item 2, which is public question time. We did invite people to submit any questions prior to meeting on the YouTube chat. Tom, are there any there?
Not currently. I'll just say, if anyone's watching and can't see the chat, if you just refresh the page, it might show up. But no, there's currently no questions.
Okay. Right, so we don't have any questions submitted. We'll go on to item 3, the minutes of the last meeting. Would somebody move those as a correct record, please? Thank you. I can see people gesticulating. Jane, you want to come in? Jane?
Sorry, my laptop's going really slow at the moment. Yes. I think, was that Colin that was going to...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second those, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. And is anybody thinking that the minutes are erroneous in any way? I'm not seeing anybody indicating, so I'll take it that they are all okay. And we'll move on then to item 4, which is police and community safety issues. We do have Neil here with us, and we've got a few issues that we want to raise with you. But Neil, I don't think we've got any statistics in terms of the crime levels. But do you want to come in and just make a contribution?
Yeah, certainly. Can you hear me okay? First time doing this, so
yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I won't speak too loud because I have got a loud voice. The crime figures haven't been issued purely because the person who does them is on leave. So Sergeant Hitchin does apologise, and he says he'll send this lot with the other lot next time. So that's his promise. So unfortunately, I can't give you anything because you should have had them first to scrutinise.
Yeah,
I did ask them when they were yesterday.
Thank you. Right, have you got anything to say that we can take into account in your defence?
In my defence. Well, I've been on leave until the middle of it's September, so I've just come back from my 3rd week, so I'm not trying to get out of it. That's gone on. We've had, obviously, problems down at Victory Park, which we've been trying to contain and keep an eye on with surrounding houses and stuff. All we're doing is trying to nip it when we see it, and we can't always be there, unfortunately, but we do our best from the teams what we've got. I think that's mainly it's Victory Park. I don't know what else is anything else what's coming up.
Well, I think we'll start off with Victory Park, and
fire up.
I'll ask Councillor Tom Whip if he'll just speak to this, and I'll just put some slides up on screen so that we can illustrate the sort of problems that we've got. So these are pictures that we've taken in recent days, and I'm hoping now you are seeing a picture of a defib.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got those photographs this afternoon. They arrived on our computer this afternoon, whatever time they were sent.
Okay, Tom, do you want to? Tom, do you want to describe the problem that we've got?
Yeah, so I think it was 2 days ago now. They've obviously stolen the shopping cart from Aldi, and then gone on to use it as a sort of step up to get onto the roof of the pavilion, climbing on the defib on the top of the garage door, and then onto the roof proper. I think if you go on to the next slide, there's a tree branch. It looks like they've tried to pry up some tiles while on the roof with that.
Yeah.
There's the damaged gutter at the rear of the pavilion, probably from being stepped on. I think if you go again, have we got?
No, we've only got three.
Go back.
Yeah.
There was further damage to the toilet block. In the men's, the toilet roll dispenser was removed from the wall.
Right.
Yeah, all round issues.
So what day did this happen? Was it just last couple of days?
2 days ago.
Right.
We've actually reported on Thursday night and on Friday night 2 instances of criminal damage for some fencing that we erected around a compound where some sewage sampling is taking place. So there was 1 panel damaged on Thursday, 1 panel damaged on Friday, and then on Sunday, that's when the town council cleaner had some difficulties, and all that is on video and on CCTV, and obviously that's that will be handed over to yourselves if you haven't already got it. You ought to be able to identify a lot of the perpetrators, because the pictures that I've seen are very good.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. Yeah. Well, like I said, I personally haven't got it. I don't know if has it been sent and it'll eventually get to me. I don't know. But yeah, we'll visit and try and sort it out.
The CCTV images are held by the hub at Blackburn. They've got a log of the activities that were going on, and the hub. We've not seen those pictures, but they've kept those for your scrutiny, and they did say that they thought that you'd be able to identify the perpetrators from the footage that they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we speak to these, though, I mean, if we get hold of them, what would you like? Sorry, would you like them to be restorative justice?
Are they going to get Aldi a new shopping trolley?
No, talking about your damage.
Well, I mean, our damage is, some guttering, toilet roll dispenser. It's not a great deal. I think the damage to public confidence, when you get employees who are harassed, and I would suggest, there's an assault taking place there, that, I don't think you can make restitution for such actions.
Well, all I know is that this video, I don't know what happened in the video. I don't know what happened, you see. I wasn't aware of the video from the cleaner. Okay. But we'll have a look. We'll take it all. We'll all get it together and we'll see. We'll have a look. Right.
Well, the general issue at Victory Park is, of course, the cars razzing around, copious dealing in substance misuse, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, those are regular activities. We did hope that there would be an action plan and measures put in place. I know that elsewhere, Matt Lunny got a dispersal order on a park over at Cotton Tree, and we're wondering, you know, why such measures aren't in place here. It's an issue that I've taken up with the inspector, but we still don't have any effective action. And I think residents and park users are fed up.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so Inspector Box hasn't returned any email about that then, because he's the only one who can. Well,
I mentioned it to him when I met him, I think physically actually, but certainly it's been mentioned online, and you know, we just at the bitter end with it all, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I briefed on when I gone back from my leave, and I couldn't believe to be honest, it's horrific down here. It's just gone crazy down here. It's just mad. Yeah,
and I think the problem is that the more people get away with, the worse it gets. So you know, they need gripping, to put it in an old-fashioned way. Can I move on and ask committee members? I've got Jane Mills who's raised a hand. So can I ask Jane to come in, please? Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Chairman. From what I'm gathering about this reporting, that it takes a certain number of reporting of the same incident or numerous incidents in one location to get any action. We've been harping on about this for months now in Victory Park, and it just seems that we don't, no matter how many times we mention it or bring it up, nothing. I mean, yeah, you can go down and try and nip things in the bud, but it's happening so many times on a weekly basis, and when we have an idea of when these things are happening, but we feel helpless that we can't take it any further, because it's you know, we get comments from the public telling us this is going on. If it's not getting reported to you, we're telling you this is happening, but we don't seem to be getting any further with it. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, with the local team, we do patrol as we do, and when the local team's not on, Colin's on to come up and monitor, drive around our hotspots. We have a task force. What can be requested, but we could request it, but we can't give them permission. Well, tell them to come over. So this is where we need to speak to the inspector about it, who come through the task force. That's what they're there for, is to go in, not heavy-handed, don't want to use those words, but go in as a large group and deal with the issues with the drugs dealing. They can search the cars, you know, and that's what we need to be doing. And that's our failing. We haven't got the task force down here. So that's one thing what we can be using.
Okay.
Instead of just relying on the local officers.
Can I come in, David, please? David, can I come in?
You're on mute, Councillor.
David, can I come in?
Sorry. Yes, you can, Jennifer.
Yes. Last week, Harry was going out for his paper up Gisborne Road, and there was 3 cars, had all the wing mirrors broken off, but it was early in the morning, so he couldn't go and knock on the doors. Now, we're having this problem down here with wing mirrors being broken. Like all the other councillors, we're having the same problem with Victory Park. It was only last week that I got a few phone calls regarding children throwing apples, scratching cars, and throwing things up at the window. Now, the residents are living in fear all around that area, and it's high time, like David said, that we got something done about this. It's going on and on and on all the time. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me come in.
Thank you, Jennifer. I've got Councillor Tom Whip indicating.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the dealing of illicit substances issue at Victory Park, I mean, from the times I've been there, it seems to me that the dealers pull up in the cars by themselves. They wait on the phone for someone to send a message, and then they go to that location to do the sale. And there's not actually much dealing there going on. It's more of a hub for dealers to sort of go from. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So all we can do as police is to swamp it and search, and if we suspect or we can smell.
Okay.
You know.
Right. Well, I think we've highlighted the issues that obviously we feel strongly about at Victory Park. I think there's a general issue with all the parks, and I realise we're getting into the winter months now, so they may reduce. But I think as an ask from the area committee, we would request that all the parks are visited and action taken as appropriate. Can I ask if there are any further issues that people want to raise? Either put your hand up electronically. I've got Peter Hampson.
Yeah, it's just going on further. There are problems in the EAB as well. There was an incident a few weeks ago, I think you're aware of it, David, on the Rushton Avenue playground, where they were firing a ball-bearing gun at residents.
Mm-hmm.
And the PCSO did actually attend.
That's
and
me.
They basically,
that was Neil.
And they were, well, they weren't taking a blind bit of notice of you from what the people who were around were saying, and later on it got into a bit of a vigilante style standoff where parents of the younger people who were trying to access the park were taking on these teenagers themselves. Now, I don't want that situation to escalate, because it will be the parents that will end up in trouble, not the teenagers who are creating the problem.
Yeah. But well, I was responding on that particular day to a call and a complaint by numerous people on Rushton Avenue. And while I was there, the parents come up saying, we can't use this park. They take over the park. So there were two olds swinging around on all the equipment, potentially can cause it damage. They don't need to be there. They're old enough to go somewhere else. Hence, I spoke to them and try to regain the park back for the young people. You know, I was criticised for it on social media, I believe, for trying to get the park back, what they requested. The parents and the young children requested, I want my park back. So that's down to them to take the park back and want to play with their children. I don't encourage any vigilante. I don't encourage anybody to get targeted. But they took it upon themselves to do that. Now, with the ball-bearing gun, it wasn't a ball-bearing, it was a soft toy gun, but very, very annoying when it's being fired.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but it's the fact that people are not seeing action, and further to that is the many instances of vandalism that we're now having at the Hilltop recreational ground, the changing rooms, and we're having to deal with that.
Yeah,
and
I think
we may end up having to put razor wire up.
No, I don't think you want to do that, really, Peter.
Yeah.
There's a general issue that during the 6 months period when children and teenagers have been out of school, that boundaries have been pushed. Youngsters have become, quite bored, and that's been a fertile breeding ground for those who would lead people astray to go, into other further undesirable activities. As far as the Rushton Avenue incident was concerned, I think the social media coverage was very supportive of your actions, Neil, and I think people welcomed that. The only unsupportive comment was, I think, from perhaps a parent who, doesn't see their child doing any wrong, but unfortunately in this case I suspect that they did. Can we move on? Can I ask if there's any further issues beyond any parks, any other activities that people want to flag up? I'm not seeing anybody indicating, so I think I've got to the point where I'm going to thank Neil very much for attending our meeting from the comfort of his car.
In Victory Park as well.
And doing 2 jobs at once, which we're very grateful for. When you've got a very thin blue line, they've got to double up where they can. So thanks very much.
I'm going to say something before I go. I will definitely speak to Sergeant Hitchin tomorrow about the task force, because that will have to be requested, but that's our department.
Yeah.
So we'll have a discussion with him tomorrow. So rest assured, that's what I'll be on with tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Neil, and we wish you well for the rest of the evening.
Thank you very much for putting up with it. Thank you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, committee is putting up with you is probably the order of the day, Neil. But you've gone now, I think, so you can't come back. Right. We have now got a planning application, and the planning application is for a change of use of land for the siting of 3 holiday shepherd huts and associated parking and infrastructure at Craven View Farm, Moorgate Road, Barnoldswick. Now, I do know that Mr. Watson has some further information to report, and that there is a letter that the applicant has asked to be read out, and I'm going to ask Mr. Watson if he will read that out, please, in due course. And we didn't organise a site visit by the committee because with social distancing in place, it would have meant several people going up in the cars, and with the best will in the world, there isn't that much space up there. So Councillor Tom Whip and I went up yesterday, and if I could run through some slides and then ask Mr. Watson if he could read out the letter and make the additional comments that he's got. So I'll put this up, and then so that's a view of the hillside, and that's actually taken from Councillor Tom Whip and I, my house, with a bit of telephoto lens applied, and the red circle there indicates the corner of the field, which is the subject of the application, and it's just in front of the trees that are circled there higher up. And then if we move on, that's an enlarged view taken in winter, where again it's that corner of the field on the hillside, and you can see there's quite a lot of other buildings in the vicinity there, with different farmsteads and dwellings. Going up the lane, that's the track as you approach a 90-degree bend here, and when you get to that 90-degree bend, you'll see that the road is wide enough for cars to pass, and clearly anybody coming down can avoid anybody coming up. We were up there for about 3/4 of an hour yesterday, and there wasn't any other vehicular traffic apart from an ATV. We passed a runner when we were going up, and there was a horse that went up. That's from the proposed vehicular access looking down. This access here is to the Craven View farm itself, and we're stood by the access that's proposed in the application. And this is the application site itself, where, as I understand it, the proposal is to dig these shepherd huts into this hillside here, and this old muck midden here would be the way that they'd actually come in from a parking area behind those trees. And that's the view looking down the field. There was actually a tup in the field whilst we were there, and it didn't headbutt us at all, but the applicant did have to sort of mollycoddle it a bit to prevent it having a go at us. That's the proposed access onto the field, and that's looking behind the trees at the area that is proposed for car parking. So the view looking up the hill there would be hidden behind the trees. And one final one, this is an area here where the applicant is proposing that he could create a further passing place for vehicles, and I think that takes us to the end of that one. So I'll take that one down and invite Mr. Watson to read out the letter and make the comments that he has. Neil?
Apologies, Chairman, I'm having some IT issues here. The letter was in my mail, but it's disappeared, so I don't have a copy to hand.
Chairman, I'd be happy to read it out from my end.
Thank
okay.
You,
or indeed put it up on screen as well.
Yeah. Do you want to do both? Because he did ask to speak at the meeting, but he's not here, so yeah.
Everyone see that? Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to read it out as well?
Yep. Dear councillors, I won't say the spiel about which planning application it is. Unfortunately, our application for 3 Shepherd's Huts has received some negative comments from LCC Highways. As you can understand, this came as quite a surprise and caused some confusion, as that a different nearby property on Folly Lane planning permission was given in 2016 for a riding school, stable block, manage and car park.
Menage,
okay. The riding school permission would have generated much more traffic than our small development / diversification. The riding school hasn't been built, but it would have used the same access to Folly Lane, albeit not for the same length. The riding for the Disabled Association also had a mechanical horse situated at Viewed Cottage, some 100 metres above Craven View Farm. It has now been relocated to Whitemoor Riding School, but up until 3 years ago, around 50 vehicles a week visited it. Some of these drivers were disabled themselves, and to our knowledge, even though there was significant traffic, including minibuses, up the lane, there were no issues with other lane users, i.e. pedestrians, horse riders, dog walkers, etc. We potentially are only expecting 3 vehicles. LCC Highways highlights visibility issues and the lack of passing places. Given the concerns raised, we have offered a provision of 2 new passing places on the lane and the widening of the lane on the main bend. The proposed improvements that will be done will far outweigh, I think that's the wrong way spelling, any inconvenience caused to other road users. Since LCC visited the site, the hedge cutter has been up the lane, already making a significant change to visibility. There has been no negative comments from any of our neighbours who use the land for access, only positive encouragement for our small development to go ahead. Also, if the council are concerned about the visual impact, shepherds' huts were chosen to blend in with the agricultural surroundings in mind, and sensitive landscaping will be undertaken. This new venture would supplement our farm income, would generate a full-time and part-time job, and ensure us to carry on farming in a traditional and sustainable way. My family has lived at Craven View Farm for the last 70 years, and as a proud Barnoldswick resident, feel our town and its surrounding area have a tremendous amount to offer any visitor, and as a result should be taken full advantage of the potential increase in people wanting a staycation. We are now the lucky guardians of Craven View Farm, with its unique and amazing views of the Three Peaks, Malham Cove, Skipton, the Yorkshire Dales, and beyond, and feel that visitors would appreciate just how beautiful it is. They would be actively encouraged to explore the many footpaths and cycle tracks that surround us, and to visit our special town with its great amenities, unique and individual retail outlets, restaurants and pubs, and the iconic landmark of Bancroft Mill. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. Yours sincerely, John Kinder.
John Kinder, I think.
John Kinder.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. Neil, you have some further information or report?
Yes, Chairman. Just to report that we had some additional plans submitted to us. Well, I saw them today, showing in 2 sets of passing places and an improvement to one of the right angle bends just down from the application site. I can put the plans up, Chairman, if you wish to. We consulted Lancashire County Council's highways service, and they have come back saying, subject to effectively the design of those passing places, they would now withdraw their objection.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I just check in terms of any other possible planning issues? Is impact on the landscape anything that we should be concerned about?
Through you, Chairman, yes. I think the principle of a tourism development there is fine. It's reasonably close to Barnoldswick, and it's probably in the kind of location you would want to see tourism. But I think the 2 issues here are one of visual impact, and you showed the photographs, etc. That's one issue. For members, I think it would have to be conditioned where members wish to approve it, should members wish to approve it. Better landscaping, because the landscaping proposal doesn't actually cover the important views in my opinion. So there's that issue, whether that would overcome any landscape impacts. Members would seek to look at, I suppose, that it was in a nucleated form. It is, you do have buildings there, so it's not, if you will, detached from that, so take that on board. So I think that's the one major issue, and the second one would have been highways. Chairman, in our view, highways has now been satisfied, bearing in mind the nature of the use of the highway. But yes, it is not a site that is completely inconspicuous.
No.
So they clearly are the two major issues to discuss.
Thank you. And I mean, I went with an open mind as to the merits or the demerits of the application. I think, having seen it on site and appreciated the way in which it would not stand out in the landscape, that I'm satisfied that we ought to approve this. I think the highways issues have been addressed and if the county council are withdrawing their objection, then that's something that we ought to take into account. So I would propose, as a ward councillor, that we do approve this. I don't think we want to see the shepherd's huts hidden behind masses of tree planting, because firstly, trees aren't a feature of that hillside so much, and introducing, mass landscape, sorry, I can't say this, introducing mass landscaping would be out of character. So I think a much lesser landscaping would be more appropriate. And so I would move. Now, in order that I've got them, I've got Mike Goulthorpe, who indicated first, and I don't know whether it was Councillor Mills or the other Councillor Whip who indicated second, but we'll go ladies first. So, Mike, if I can take you, and then I'll bring Jane in.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to point that on the report, I noticed that the visual amenity and landscape impact is identified as it isn't unacceptable at all. It's it wouldn't have a major visual impact on the landscape. So I think your point about not over egging it with trees is right. And I would, by all means listen. I would cut to the chase and willingly support your motion to accept this development.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Tom Whip said the hands are in the order that they went up, so I'm sure he's going to be of good grace and allow Jane to come in first. Jane?
No, I did see Tom's hand go up first, so I'm quite happy to let Tom go on this one.
Okay, Councillor Tom Whip.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if Mike seconded that or just offered his support.
Okay, you're formally seconding if need be.
Formally second that if need be, Chair. I think the largest concern that I had initially was the cars and if they would be suitably hidden away. Looking at the site, the line of trees there, and I'm assuming they're being retained. Obviously, that will be in the plans. Assuming they're retained, then I think the effect on the landscape from the vehicles is suitably negated. As well as that, I mean, in the setting of the agricultural vehicles, I think the buildings, not vehicles, I think the shepherd's huts are a good choice. Yeah, and I think it could definitely bring in some good tourism, if not only just for the views.
Thank you. Jane.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just got a couple of questions, really. I don't know if Neil can answer these. If we were to vote for this to go forward, would this set a precedent? Because for other farms going forward, would they then have the ability, with this one being allowed, to give them more sort of weight to their argument? And the other point is, with the road being unadopted, and it is an unlit road, if someone is wanting to do some work on that road, and then to widen it, the road is quite narrow in places, and you're going to widen that. There are walls in the vicinity, and if something happens to one of those walls, who would be responsible to make that right if it does happen that a wall falls down? And I think on that the tight bit at the bottom, the sort of Z part, there's a tree in the corner there. I don't know if that will be affected at all by this widening thing that they've put on the map. Thank you.
Okay, can I just pick up that last point first, and I'll put the pictures back up if I can. So that's where the tight bend is, where it's quite steep, where I always have to stop for a bit of a rest if I'm walking up there. And you can see there's ample width to create a formalised passing place around that bend and get two-way traffic in effect. And I don't think we can see any trees that would need to be dealt with there. In terms of the maintenance of the road, the different land holdings up there have responsibility for different sections. So, one property is responsible for the first 132 yards, and then a different property is responsible for the next 132 yards, and so on and so forth until you get up to the top. In practice, all the residents up there in recent years have taken communal action to concrete the road and make it more durable than it was previously. If you go back a while, it used to be all loose aggregate, and that's been dealt with. In terms of the walls, and in fact, the applicant told us about his father, who obviously farmed the land before him, was very keen on maintaining the dry stone walls. And I think he said he reckons that he's got 2 miles of dry stone walls, and it's it's a bit like the painting the Forth Bridge, that they undertake the repairs to the walls on an annual basis, and every year there's some that need putting back into place. So on that score, I think that the walls are in safe hands, because there certainly seems to be a family tradition of ensuring that they are kept to a high standard. And I think we can confirm from the, if you look at these pictures here, those walls are all the responsibility of the landowner, the applicant. And I think the concrete blocks are falling over. But if you look at this here, this is some walling that has been done recently to hide the concrete blocks that are underneath it. So I think the applicant has demonstrated a keen sense of caring for the environment on that respect. So, Mr. Watson, you were asked a question. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. The brief answer to Councillor Mills is that no, it won't set a precedent in the sense that we already allow tourism development support, supporting farms, etc. You look at the specific impacts of that individual development, and they will vary from location to location. So approving this won't open up a floodgate or stop a floodgate. It will just mean that this particular development is acceptable in this location.
Thank you. Can I ask if there's any further questions or comments? I don't see anybody indicating. Could I ask if there's anybody who is opposed to granting approval subject to the conditions that have been suggested? Okay. In that case, can we agree that this application is approved? Various nods of assent and no dissent. So the vote is carried in favour of the application being approved, and Mr. Watson will issue a decision notice in due course. We're going to go on to another planning issue next, well, 2 or 3 planning issues next. And the next item is appeals, and we have a report which tells us the state of play with different appeals. He says trying to get the papers up. So we have 2 outstanding appeals, one for the rear of 21 to 25 Duxbury Street, Earby, and there is an appeal against the refusal of the erection of 26 holiday lodges at the former Van Alswick Waterworks. And then we've got 2 appeal decisions, which on the first one, it's for Seddon Homes, land to the east of Beckside, where the appeal has been dismissed, in other words, turned down. And the second one is for land to the northeast of Meadowway off Skipton Road, where the appeal has been allowed with conditions. So can we note that? Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Carroll?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just want to say absolutely great news about the Thames development in Salford. Really pleased that the Commissioner who is in charge has accepted common sense.
Thank you.
That it won't be built on.
Yeah, Councillor Tomwitt.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you, Chair, to Neil Watson. The decision to allow the development at the land of northeast Meadowway, will that open up the land further north of the site, which was previously rejected on appeal, to development in the future? Does this set a precedent that that land is now up for grabs, or is it still protected under the previous decisions?
Through you, Chairman. No site's ever protected as such, but what the inspector did in allowing this appeal was to clearly differentiate between the impacts of the previous scheme to the current scheme and emphasise the landscaping, etc. So, which was part of the proposals for the allowed scheme. So you can never say in absolute terms that nothing will come forward, but having had 2 inspectors who were quite strong in their views about the appeals, unless something really changed, my view, I would term it highly unlikely that something could come forward and get an approval.
Okay, thank you very much. Mike, you want to comment? Mike?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick one for Neil. Having lost an appeal, what sort of time frame is looked at in terms of a reapplication for that particular patch of land at a later date? I'm obviously zooming in on Seddons in that respect. So, you know, is there a recognised time delay before people could reapply, or can they do that anytime? And is there any safeguard? I think you've already answered one question. There's nothing we can do to safeguard that, irrespective of the appeal decision. One for you, Neil, really. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, I'll answer that in 2 ways. There's a technical hiatus of 2 years where we can refuse to deal with the same or similar applications. So there won't be anything for 2 years. I think it was quite clear from both the inspector who had the judicial review, and that appeal was quashed, the view he took, and the last inspector, they were having none of it. They were quite equivocal about, or unequivocal, should I say, about dismissing the appeal. So I would think that any developer would be up against it and will maybe throwing good money after bad were they to pursue it. So definitely 2 years, but probably not thereafter.
Thank you, Neil. Could I just add that my reading of the situation is that Seddons would have an option, or would have had an option, on the land, and as part of that option, they were obligated to pursue all legal channels to obtain planning consent if they could. So that option, I suspect, will now have expired, and that Seddon's interest in the land may be no more, at least for the foreseeable future. But I think that neatly takes us on to national planning reforms, which is the next item on the agenda. And this is a report that went to Policy and Resources Committee, and it's been circulated to area committees so that people are aware of the changes that are coming. There is more to come, but I'll just invite Mr. Watson to speak to this and outline what the implications are in terms of this committee and other area committees' decision taking.
Chairman, the main reason for bringing this is for information. At this moment in time, probably the majority of the changes won't affect you immediately, but they will do in due course. And obviously some of these are still for consultation, so we don't know the final outcome of these. You have permitted development rights, particularly something called Part 20 of the General Development Order, which allows automatically for new residential units to be built on certain developments, existing offices, some residential units, etc. That's one of the main reasons why we wanted to report this to each area committee, so that you were aware of what permitted rights were put in place. The main impact is that the old Class B1, which was offices and light industrial units, and they were contained on our protected employment sites in many ways. That classification has now gone, as has shops, so general shops, offices open to the public, and cafes, and they've all been subsumed into a single use class, Class E. That means that to change from a cafe to a shop to light industrial is no longer development and does not require planning consent. It isn't development. I think in some ways that will help some of the town centres because there'll be more flexible uses, and I think we're in a society where we need to change those. My main concern is that it will also potentially lead to out of town retailing, and my professional view is that it's ill thought out to allow our employment areas to automatically go to retailing, because that kind of undermines the rationale for protecting our town centres. So, Chairman, I think that is the major impact that you will see. Chairman, of the other, I won't go into the report. It's there for you. I think the other issue that we've objected to is that permission in principle has been extended, or proposal to be extended to major schemes. So that the two schemes, for example, that we've just looked at, the scope for determining those, what you can take on board, is less than if it was a full planning application. So the Policy and Resources Committee objected to that. They thought it was an undemocratic way, and for major housing schemes there should be a full planning application that communities, councillors, planning officers, etc. can scrutinise. That has not yet been implemented, but as a council we've objected to permission in principle being extended to major schemes for the reasons set out. Chairman, I don't propose to say anything else. There are issues around standard methodology, which is housing numbers. I think it's probably easier, instead of going through it, for me to answer any questions should members have any.
Thank you, Neil. Are there any questions? I mean, I would suggest that people put this on the shelf and pull it off when we have relevant issues being raised. Jane.
Thank you, Chair. I had a brief look at this earlier on. When's this likely to come into force? I know you've objected. Is there a timescale with this?
Neil?
Chairman, in terms of the reforms which are not yet implemented, it's difficult to know with the COVID situation and Brexit. Obviously, government have different priorities, and
you're frozen, Neil. You mentioned Brexit, and all of a sudden your internet shut down. Mike, can I bring you in whilst Neil unfreezes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think, I mean, I'm sure West Craven Area Committee will continue to apply its usual rigour to planning applications, and there are worrying parts of this, clearly, particularly the major developments at the end of the day, and I agree with Neil's analysis of out-of-town retail developments. I mean, spent my lifetime trying to secure as many of those as possible. It really, you know, it really is a worrying document. I only hope that what we've put together, what Pendle Borough has put together, Neil Watson's involvement and everything else, gets a good hearing in terms of the consultation. But I think, Chairman, it could well be TINAT time in the future, but in West Craven Area Committee, but we'll see. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Neil, you're back with us. I'm not quite sure what, well, you've just disappeared now. Are you here, Neil? No. Okay. I think in Neil's absence, we'll let him reconnect. But I think there is a great deal of concern that this is weakening the protection that local residents have. It's clearly going to be difficult to resist, or even will have even greater difficulty resisting applications that are unwelcome in the future. But there's not a great deal that we can do about national planning policy and the legislation that the government introduced, and I suspect that Pendle Council isn't listened to very much. I'm not going to spin this out any longer. Neil will no doubt join us when he can, or rejoin us when he can. So can we move on to the next item? We're noting that report. The next item is enforcement action, and there are two items on this. One of them is the former Gospel Mission Hall on Hollins Road, or to the rear of Hollins Road, Barnoldswick, which has been served with a Section 79 Building Act notice, and that's due to go back to court at some point because the notice hasn't been complied with. The second one, and this is where the new Class E planning classification may come into effect, because this is for the Little Green Playhouse, and it may well be that the new regime will mean that can get past the policy objections to its use for that soft play centre. So that's something that's ongoing, and there's been correspondence between Mr. Watson and the applicant's consultant. Is the capital programme, and we have a report which sets out the various projects that we have, the funds that are available for Earby Ward and the two Barnoldswick wards, and I've just got two items that I want to raise on this, but I'll just ask if there's any other comments that people want to make or proposals. It looks like Neil's now rejoined us, but we've moved on, Neil. We're on the capital programme now. I've got Mike. Do you want to come in?
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chairman. I seem to remember we had the debate a couple of meetings ago with David Walker was involved concerning dog bins and waste bins being charged as revenue rather than capital. And I seem to remember, Chairman, that you said you might have a word about that with the management. I wondered if you'd got any further.
Well, I'm afraid not, because every time I speak to the management, everybody's tearing their hair out. Not that Mr. Langton has got any left. Everybody's tearing their hair out about COVID-19. So it never seems opportune to interject, in the various meetings with the MPs and the other Lancashire leaders and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. It never seems appropriate to me to say, and what about our dog bins? So I'm sorry, but I'm an abject failure when it comes to actually resolving that issue. But we are hopeful of appointing a new finance person in due course, and I would gladly take it up with that new finance person, and I could even raise it as part of the interview questions. What does he think about financing dog bins? Sorry, I said he there, he or she. I'm not aware of what applicants there may be. And I can see Emma giving me a steely glare there with a HR hat on. So my grovelling apologies on that one. On 2 scores now, I'll stop digging. The issues that I wanted to pick up, thank you, Mike. The issues that I wanted to pick up relate to town centre reopening. It's line 27 on page 5, and you'll recall that committee allocated £3,000 for the funds earmarked for Bonalswick from the capital programme towards the town centre reopening project. There's been quite a lot of head scratching as to what we could actually use that for, and we came to the conclusion that actually there isn't a lot that we could use it for. We have 2 other sets of funding, which is partly from the ERDF funding, the European funding, which for the area committee as a whole is 11,317. And then there's approximately half that sum, I forget the exact amount, from Pendle Council's revenue, and all the work that is envisaged would fall into revenue or be eligible for the ERDF. So my proposal is that we via that £3,000 towards another project, which is on the previous page, which is the public realm work in Bonalswick Town Centre. And you'll see there that we've virtually spent up from the area committee money. There's 1 or 2 additional aspects of work that we would like to include, but they will need funding. So the proposal is to via that £3,000 towards the item number 26. It says Bonalswick Town Square reflagging scheme, but it is the public realm work in the centre of Bonalswick, and specifically it's towards the work, because that one for a start. Councillor Tom Whip.
Thank you, Chair. It's unfortunate really that we won't be able to spend that money on town centre reopening, but in my opinion it doesn't really seem appropriate at the moment with the rising cases. I mean, I'm fearful that another lockdown is imminent, and we're not out of the thick of it yet. So I'd support that. I think the long term, in the long term, the improvements made in the public realm is a good thing and well worth it.
Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. The reason isn't so much the fact that we want to boost the town centres in Earby and Bonalswick, but the capital money that Pendle Council hold isn't appropriate for that sort of work. It's more promotional and revenue rather than capital. So oh, sorry about that. Did I go back on to mute?
I think you touch your space bar and your space bar mutes you.
Oh, right. You learn something new every day, don't you? I was handling my papers. Right. So it's not appropriate to use this capital for what we intended. There's funding coming from elsewhere, and the £3,000 is better spent on that other issue. So, Jane, I've got you. Oh, sorry, Rosemary first. Is it on this topic?
Yes, so it is, yeah. Regarding this ERDF funding, 11,000, I noticed in the minutes that you've asked for it all to go to Bonalswick Town Council. Can I just have clarification? Is he going to get its share? What's it going to be spent on either?
Okay.
If his share.
Well, I'll let Mike Goulthorpe come in and Colin. And they can explain to Rosemary why we're using that as a device to be able to utilise the funding. It's not going to Bonalswick. It's Bonalswick Town Council is going to carry out work on behalf of Earby, because Earby Town Council haven't responded to invitations to take the money and do something with it. Mike, can I bring you in?
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically correct, Chair. We decided a couple of meetings ago, I think it was, there wasn't much appetite, to be fair, from Earby Town Council to get involved. So rather than miss out, and bearing in mind our High Street is fairly simple, and quite a lot of the properties have been open because they were fresh food properties, it was decided that we would take the benefit of riding on Bonalswick's back on this one, if I may put it that way, Chairman, and benefit from the work that you were going to put into it.
Okay. Well, can we dispose of the £3,000, and then I'll bring item 12 in with this discussion, and we can deal with them both at the same time. So we're talking about the 3,000, utilising it for the public realm improvements and switching that capital funding over. And I've got Jane Mills.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think going off what Tom said, if you're proposing it and Tom's seconding it, then happy to go along with that. I think it's a long game with this COVID thing, and the reopening of the town centre there. We have got money coming that we can put to what we need to do. This £3,000 can be well used for an area that does need looking at and maintaining. So that would be an improvement in itself. And then next year's money, we could have a look again if there's any money needs putting back into the town centre as well to improve things then maybe.
Yeah, and the funding is going to go into the town centre, but it's using the capital funding for a capital project rather than trying to use it for a revenue fund, which will get vetoed by Mr. Langton and his Murray finance officers. So can we put that to the vote? Is there anybody dissenting from that if they show now? Otherwise, I will take that as carried. And thank you very much. So taking item 12 together with the capital programme and discussing the issue that Rosemary raised. In previous meetings, we've outlined the sort of work that it's intended to do, and essentially that's promoting both Bonalswick and Earby as places that people can shop safely, and looking to promote groups of businesses or individual businesses through a range of things. And to be honest, I've not written them all down, but getting quality photographs of different businesses so that they can use those in their own promotional material, but we could use those as in a hard copy brochure or digitally on thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, there's SB Fruits starring, and I'm not quite sure you've hidden that other bit. That actually got funded from the central pot rather than the pot that's been provided to area committees. So good quality pictures for use in digital promotion and the like, video production, short videos promoting the areas as well, a digital, well, possibly a digital offering in terms of collective ordering, so that there might be people go online and they could order goods from several businesses in Bonalswick or Earby, and there's an app that would then organise the delivery so as to make it easy for people to get things delivered without going to somebody like Amazon or places like that. And then suggestions about perhaps providing some temporary covered space, so if people have to queue out in the rain, that they're accommodated in more comfort than they would otherwise have had. The issue in terms of actually spending this money is that Bonalswick Town Council agreed to play a full part in actually driving this forward and placing orders and getting work undertaken. We didn't have any response from Earby Town Council, and I think Colin and Mike may have tried to get that interest and failed to do so. So the proposal is that the split between the two different town centres would remain on the 1/3, 2/3 basis, but Bonalswick Town Council would organise the work on behalf of the people in Earby, as well as doing the stuff in Bonalswick. The difficulty has been prying the money out of Dean Langton's hands, and I understand that has now been resolved, and I spoke to Mr. Watson earlier today, and the adequate arrangements are in place, subject to there being a formal agreement in terms of the ERDF only being utilised for eligible items. So it's been a sticking point for Bonalswick Town Council in terms of, is the funding available, because the Town Council won't order work unless they've got some guarantee that it's going to be funded, and it's doubly difficult in terms of work being carried out on behalf of Earby coming through the Town Council. You can understand the sensitivities that people would want to see that it's properly allocated and things like that. So that is the proposal, and we just need to codify that in the decision that we're taking tonight, so that the funding can be released and we can actually place orders for photographers to come and take pictures, and all videographers and all that sort of thing, to get that underway. So that's my request, and I've got Mike who's indicated. Mike.
Yeah, just to am I? Yes, I'm unmuted, aren't I? Just to say that total agreement, Chairman. That everything you've said is absolutely accurate. I would just hope we can get some quality, continued quality backing for marketing as such, really, for the businesses in Aby, and I think that would be great. More the merrier. Maybe even some street furniture posters or what have you on the high bollards along the road. So yeah, and hopefully we may get some input. Peter's still there. Peter can report back to Aby if we can get some ideas from Aby Town Council as well about this. So that would be my comment. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, and we certainly would welcome, ideas. And my suggestion would be that outside this meeting, if we need to discuss things further and there's contributions, of suggestions, that we have a separate meeting and we get on with it. Can I ask if there's any further comments on this? If not, could I ask, are we agreed on that course of action? Yeah, okay, that's moved and seconded then and carried. That, I'll trust that Joanne's got the gist of that, and we can move on. The other issue that we wanted to pick up on the capital programme is the Bonalswick balance for this financial year is £940. Members may be aware, the Bonalswick members may be aware of the necessity to do some work at Victory Park in connection with the small car park adjacent to Bonalswick town, and I think there's some funding from a revenue budget towards that, but there is a requirement to do some work in terms of safety, and the proposal is that we allocate £440 of that 940 towards work at Victory Park in connection with car park repairs to that small car park. So I would move that. Do I see a second? Seconded, Jane?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Are there any further contributions on that? If not, can I take that as read? And that's carried. So we've allocated 440, leaving £500 in the bank for possible future allocation. Okay, is there anything further on the capital programme? If not, we will note the rest of the report and move on. So the next item on the agenda is the traffic liaison meeting, item 9, and there are various issues on here where we raised matters at previous meetings. And if I can turn to two that are on the back page of the written report. You recall that we discussed problems on the A56, both in Kelbrook and through Aby, from New Road through to School Lane, and the request was for, well, on here it just says for speed limit signage on Skipton Road. I mean, the actual request was for speed cameras to be installed, and the resolution from the Traffic Liaison Committee was that this matter should be referred to the Lancashire Road Safety Partnership website. Now, I'm very sorry, but referring something to a website does not seem to be the way forward when this authority is asking for some road safety work to be considered. So I think in terms of this committee, that we would make strenuous representations that we want proper consideration to be given to these road safety concerns, and for the various ideas to be discussed that we put forward. And you know, they range from having a mini roundabout at the three-way junction at the end of Victoria Road and New Road, the speed cameras that I've already mentioned, and indeed any other thing that could be brought in to make it safer. So for the County Council to say, oh, well, you know, take this up with a website, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't cut the mustard with me. I've got Mike indicating and Jane. There are some other issues as well, so if we can pick off this one for a start. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, totally agree with you. It's totally unacceptable. I mean, the channeling, what's the point of having a traffic liaison meeting and an area committee both pushing this forward, and you get referred to a website which anybody, to be fair, any local resident can go on and put anything on it. We've either got to have some recognition that, you know, we're putting time and effort into this, and it's totally unacceptable from my perspective. In fact, I looked at it 3 or 4 times and couldn't believe it. We're now passing that is passing the book by a high order, I would suggest. And I would fully support your views on that, Chairman. And I think we need to get stuck into this one.
Thank you. Jane?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, when I had a look at this earlier on, it just struck me that it's a cop-out. You know, you put all the work and effort into bringing something to their attention, and they just refer you to a website. I did go on that website, actually. And I think from memory, it said something about you can go and have a look, see if there's any attention being done on that stretch of road. And they don't look at it until about 3 years is up if they've previously gone to it. So you're just wasting your time. You know what I mean? It just seems like a complete waste of time and effort. So, I'd be happy for it to be raised and to get something stronger done on this.
Thank you. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. Just as a bit of background knowledge, EAB Town Council did approach the Lancashire Road Safety Partnership to try and get a Pelican Crossing by EAB Autos, the garage there, onto the recreational ground. And they turned around and declined it, basically stating that because there'd been no deaths on that road, that it couldn't be allowed. And even though there've been many accidents or severe accidents in certain cases, they just wouldn't entertain. So it's just a bit of background knowledge for everybody about the complacency that LCC have with that stretch of road.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Councillor Tom Whitt. You're muted.
Thank you, Chair. Just previous points that this committee has referred to the Traffic Liaison Committee don't appear to be on the agenda. Were the meetings of the liaison meeting when this committee wasn't operating that we haven't seen the results of? I mean, the area I'm thinking of is the HGV signage on Oates Avenue.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, has that been resolved or not?
No, I don't think it has. And the bigger issue is, and I made a note of this earlier, was Skipton Road, road safety, request for speed cameras, and pedestrian crossing on Skipton Road again seems to have, sort of disappeared off the agenda for this county council meeting. So there's a whole range of issues which we're going to flag up tonight, and that includes the ones that you're raising now.
Yeah. As well as that, there was the increase in the speed limit that I requested for Manchester Road. I remember they had a previous decision, we'll look into other ways than raising the speed limit for that area. I don't know what those other measures they found were. I don't think they ever considered it again. But I'd like that request to go back on. There's nothing been done. I think it's inadequate, really.
Okay, and it's twofold on Manchester Road, because on the lower section where most vehicles are exceeding the 20 miles an hour, the view was that it should be actually sensibly at 30. But on the other hand, further up where it's narrow, outside the turret at the top of Tubber Hill, we want them to take additional measures to actually slow the traffic down so that the risks there are reduced. So, we want a holistic view on all of this, and it's just we're not getting anywhere on any of it at all, really. So those are some of the other issues that we're going to pick up. There's one further issue which isn't on the agenda, and I don't think we've requested previously, but on Foster Road in Barnoldswick, there are some yellow lines that were put down when the bus turning area was there, and they were put down so that the bus could actually get round the corner and then into the turning place. But they're now mostly redundant, and there's a great demand for parking in that area. So the request is for the removal of those double yellow lines for a sensible distance to allow additional car parking to take place at the curbside there. So could I propose that we include that together with the other items just raised as issues that we want some sensible discussion on with the County Council, so as to make some progress on all of these. Councillor Mills, Jane.
Thank you, Chairman. Just looking at the Park Road, Park Avenue one in Barnoldswick, highlighted in black, regarding traffic problems in that area, it was agreed that no further action to be taken as there is not the capacity to enforce.
Yeah.
It just seems like they're just finding an excuse, any excuse to not do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that one there, clearly it was felt important to not have the through traffic going over Park Road. It's a tortuous route with lots of parked vehicles, shuttle working because there isn't room for two vehicles to pass. And the County Council is shrugging their shoulders and saying, well, can't be enforced, so we won't do aught about it. It's a nonsense, clearly a nonsense. There isn't the enforcement to do thousands of things, but it doesn't stop people doing the best. So I think we'll add that onto the list as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. Are we okay to move on with that jumbo resolution? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. The next item that we have is the proposed introduction of a residents-only parking scheme on Long Ing Lane, and the report is saying that there's been a positive response from residents in favour of introducing such a scheme, and the recommendation is that traffic surveys are carried out.
Sorry, David, you're muted.
I'm not listening anymore.
You're muted, Chair.
I know. I keep putting my papers on the keyboard, and the the keyboard must be so sensitive that it can't stand 5 sheets of A4 on it. So I don't know where you lost me there, but I described what had been done and the proposal that there be a traffic survey so as to back up a request of the County Council for this to be done. So are we agreed on that?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then we've got the same situation at Parkview Terrace in Salterford, which is one that has been, and I'm trying not to put my papers on the keyboard, this has been kicking about for quite a considerable length of time. There is considerable support from residents to do it, and again, carrying out a further traffic survey with a report back to committee. So I think if we can ask that as soon as possible, given the length of time it's taken to get to this stage. We agreed? Thank you very much. Everybody's nodding, either they're nodding because they're falling asleep or because they're in agreement, but nodding nevertheless. Item 12 we've already dealt with during the capital programme item. I don't think there's anything further on that one. Environmental blight is item 13, and we have the Damhead Road garage site, and members asked that the site be tidied and monitored, and then in the current position, councillors are conducting a survey of the unconditioned number of garages that are used for storage rather than for the garaging of vehicles. Councillor Tom Whip, do you want to comment on a Damhead garage site, please?
Sure. There hasn't been a survey carried out yet. We've been a bit involved with other things, but there is quite a few garages that aren't used for storing vehicles, as well as it just looking, very unsightly. I'll probably get round to that sometime in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Rosemary, you want to speak on Damhead garage site or the West Close lorry park?
Neither, Chair. I want to ask a question.
About environmental blight on council-owned land.
Environmental blight. The engine shed up New.
No, on council-owned land, Rosemary.
All right. So
that's a problem site, and that will be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Right, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Can we note that then? Thank you very much. And moving on to item 14, this is tackling contamination in recycling bins, and it's Mr. Walker's opportunity to start.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I've brought this, it's going around all our committees because we're taking some action with funding provided by Lancashire County Council to improve the quality of the products that we're collecting via the curbside collection schemes. The report identifies nationally that there's 82% of people admit that they put incorrect items into their recycling bins due to confusion, etc. And whereas research within Pendle showed that over the last 12 months, we've ranged between 20% and 34% as contamination rates within the bins.
You're breaking up, David.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. We averaged out at 25.5% last year. Clearly, a lot of that's about a quarter of each load being contaminated. And the County Council are taking steps to help us improve the quality of the products, and the brown bins, glass cans and plastic.
David, can I just interrupt? Can I just check whether everybody else is getting the breaking up that I'm experiencing? Tom?
I can also, Chair.
Tom's breaking up as well. Is it just me?
Maybe.
Try and be brief, Chair.
Okay.
I can hear him okay.
Okay, it must be my end, so I'll bring David back in. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. So just explaining, the County Council had taken steps to try and improve the quality of the products that we collected. They've taken measures by taking our materials to their facilities in Leyland and doing some additional sorting. Likewise, they've taken our paper and cardboard to sort and taken steps to improve the quality by removing contamination from it. But we're still receiving a high amount of rejection rates from the offshoots. So we got the opportunity to bid for some funding to put towards a scheme to improve the quality of the products, and we were gladly awarded just over £17,000. And what we've chosen to do with that is to recruit an officer for a 6-month period to assist us in taking steps to improve the quality of the products that were collected at the curbside. Hence the report coming to yourselves this evening, as it's going to all area committees, because there will be action taken probably within your areas. We had obviously wanted to do some door knocking and face-to-face discussions with residents and some road shows, but as things are at the moment, we've had to change our plans, and we'll be taking more of a back step and using letters and posters and things like that to improve, hopefully, improve what we do at the curbside. Generally, that's it, Chair. Sorry, Chair, you're muted now.
Sorry about that. I've got a number of speakers. I've got Tom Whip.
Thank you, Chair. I think maybe a good way of tackling this, because it's quite easy to forget which plastics are recyclable for our area. I mean, obviously, you got those tiny little triangles built into the plastic. I'm wondering, would it be useful to commission some fridge magnets with the different things you can recycle and aren't, to go on the fridge, send out to addresses? Something similar to the bin collection times.
I could take it as a proposal and we can look at it. We do issue the annual leaflet, which is quite pictorial, which tries to explain everything that can go into the brown bin and the blue bins, but it's not. We won't rule out any suggestions at this stage, anyway.
I quite like the idea of actual magnets with the recycling symbol and a 1 and a 2 and a 5 in terms of the different plastics that you can use.
I think it's 135 for us.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Which is why we need the fridge magnet.
Hey, look, hang on a minute. Who does all sorting out in our house? Right, I've got Jennifer next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to leave the meeting because I've just had an operation today and it's getting uncomfortable.
Okay, Jennifer,
so thank you very much for everything.
Yeah,
and have a safe journey. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jennifer.
Bye-bye.
Rosemary.
Thanks, Chairman. It's a question for David. This report, it goes back 12 months, you say. Is it 12 months up to when?
So is this in relation to paragraph 4?
Yeah, you're saying this report is for the last 12 months, up to when?
Sorry, we were taking the recordings from up to July.
This year?
Yes.
All right. Well, you surprised me then, because I would have expected the inert waste to be a lot higher, due to the fact that a lot of people have been at home, we've all been clearing out, doing work, etc., but can't take it to the tip.
Yes.
And I think that is absolutely stupid, and it's disgraceful of Lancashire County Council to not allow people to get rid of the rubbish when, it will just amount to more fly tipping, and I think that you will see these figures go up, not down. End of rant.
I don't know whether Jennifer's left us, but of course, at County Hall, Jennifer is part of the group that pushed all this through. So it's probably a good job that she's logged off. Anyway, we are where we are with that. can we wish David very well, and can we assure him from the Whip household that our recycling is immaculate? It will not be pleased that due to our renewed sustainability, we actually didn't renew the green bin collection. That is all getting composted now. We've got 2 compost heaps that are merrily consuming all our vegetable waste from the kitchen, as well as all the green waste from the garden, and we'll be using that to reinvigorate our soil in due course. Any further speakers on this? No. Can we note that report and thank David very much? We're going to go on to tree planting next. I know this is something that Councillor Tom Whip has been pushing for, so I'm going to bring him in if there's no comments from Neil about the initiative. Neil Watson?
No, Chairman, I think the report's full.
Okay.
I don't think I need to comment, Chairman.
Right, so I'll put some slides up on screen, and I invite Councillor Tom Whip just to make his contribution. He says, give me a moment because I'm on the wrong pictures now. Right, I'll just have to flick through them. Right, Tom.
Thank you. I mean, the key things I'm going to be, that Dave's going to show you now is land which wasn't sort of picked up on in the report to full council. There was no areas, I think, in West Craven that went to full council as sites to plant. Davey, you're not sharing your screen there yet.
Well, I'm struggling now. I'm sorry. It's not actually showing me the...
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
You've got it, have you?
Yeah. So in the top left there is land adjacent to the Mugger in near the Courts Estate. I mean, I think that was originally forested. It was transferred to Bonalswick Town Council. That's a site that's available for planting. In the top right is an area next to a play area. Now, we wouldn't propose planting up the field area there, but the banking would be utilised for low shrubbery or indeed trees. In the bottom right, this is land owned by the county council, which did at one point promise to plant it up, but they've never done so. It was originally going to be for the primary school, but indeed they built it on a sports pitch instead. So this is... Oh, are you going to continue on? Yeah. So this is the Bankfield... Is it Bankfield? Bank Street play area. On the top right picture, on the left-hand side there, there's a row of trees that's coming to the end of their lives pretty, well, I'd say soon, but in a few years. So that wants to have a second row planted, and we could actually just plant out the entire area, really. The bottom left is the other side of the path. I think it's all sort of potential, and I think this is currently owned by Pendle Council, is it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Moving on. These are some areas in Victory Park. This is near the gas governor. At the north of the site, nearest the allotment areas. These are areas that are already quite wooded, but there's sparser areas They're not really used for any sports. I think they're very good areas that could be utilised for tree planting. The one on the top left here is an interesting bit of land. It's sort of a gap in an old tree planting scheme that didn't seem to grow. And judging by the hedge, which is meticulously cut low, it seems like the occupiers adjacent to the land didn't want any trees growing there. So I think if any planting did go ahead, just to be amenable, it'd be any low-lying shrubbery, low trees, maybe even fruit trees might be appropriate, dwarf varieties. And the bottom right there is land just adjacent to the training rugby pitch, not the main rugby pitch. I think down the side there's opportunity for planting, which wouldn't interrupt the playing field there. Next slide. In top left there, again, Victory Park. That area there is the just next to the rugby pitch. You can see the West Craven Warriors lock up on the left there at the top. There's some trees that might want thinning out in that area already, so a bit of woodland management would be in order. But then a couple of patches of tree planting there would be good. We need to sort of liaise with the maintenance team at Pendle just to make sure we're not getting in the way of the mowers. And in the bottom right there, I'm sure EAB councillors will recognise this site. It's the council owned land, prime for tree planting. I'll let them comment on that.
Yeah, so we ended on Bailey Street because we wanted to make the point that there is Pendle Council land available for planting in West Craven. And the other issue is in terms of coordination and cooperation between town and parish councils for any planting programmes to be inclusive of those bodies, rather than Pendle just doing its own thing on its own land. And as far as this area committee is concerned, I think part of our resolution needs to highlight the opportunities of that cooperative working. And one final thing from me is to do with the opportunities that there are from various funding bodies. There's an invitation to bid at the moment from the various river catchments, and this is tree planting in connection with natural flood management. And the correspondence that I get is from the air catchment, so that's covering Earby, Calbrook, Salterford and part of Barnoldswick up to Barnsley Shed, or the former Barnsley Shed. And we're just going to have a cat walking in front of the camera now. So if the tail goes past, you can just see the tail. Come here, JJ. Yeah, so I've got Mike wanting to come in. So Mike, if I could ask you to come.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Tom, for putting Bailey Street on. Great news, that. Look, there are areas, we raised this when it first came up, that we were disappointed that West Craven had been left out in terms of trees. Could I ask that, the point you made, Chairman, about making certain parish and town councils are involved, but could I ask Colin and Peter to raise this in Earby Town Council, who own quite a bit of land here and there in Earby, where there could be possibility of increased tree planting. The parts of the waterfalls area is one. There is other areas down at the wreck, and also we mustn't lose sight of the large area of Sough Park in itself, where a little bit of woodland management at the top would be useful, and some imaginative planting there could take place. But really, we need to involve Earby Town Council and indeed Kelbrook and stuff over the park. But there is, I think, quite one or two opportunities in and around, as you started to look and find in Barnoldswick. So could we ask, through you, Chairman, Colin and Peter, to sort of carry the torch into Earby Town Council? Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I've got Neil indicating.
Chairman, thank you. I'm hearing the debate, and it's good that there's a lot of support for the planting. Chairman, there's only a certain amount of funding at the moment, but we're looking at opportunities, obviously, and there'll be more funding opportunities. I think the only point I would ask, if we could let Lee Johnson have sight of those lists of other from Earby Town Council and for Councillor Tom Whip, that'd be great, and then we can look towards rolling out as much as we possibly can when and if we can access funding.
Thank you very much. Is there any further? Tom, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I mean, on the funding side of things, I think an important part of involving the town councils is that they may wish to chip in. I mean, Barnoldswick Town Council, we've already ordered 400 trees for Leckcliffe Park planting, and we've agreed that we want to get on with Victory Park too. So I think if we do include all the town councils in the borough, our horizons broaden.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think the resolution is to formally invite submissions of possible sites from parish and town councils, and to request that Pendle Council includes these areas in programmes, and that we seek funding from wherever funding may be found to enable us to plant. Is that okay? Yeah. Right. I've now got a cat sat on my agenda, and it's 9 o'clock, and the cat is saying, look, this is supper time, why aren't you feeding me? So it's getting really stroppy and trampling over my keyboard as well. So we've got item 16, which are items for discussion, and we've got further road safety concerns in terms of the traffic at the crossroads at Salterford, and the speed of traffic through Salterford as well. So could I propose that this is another issue, or two issues really, that we refer to the County Council and the Traffic Liaison Committee with a request that this issue is considered as a matter of some seriousness, rather than being referred to a website. Is that supported? Nods. Very good. The second issue is the culvert on Gisborne Road, Barnoldswick, which has been the topic of several resolutions in the past. And the County Council is saying they know nothing about this. So can we reaffirm our request and ask that our previous resolutions are coupled with a resolution tonight requesting that the County Council upsize the culvert under Gisborne Road, which takes all the flows from that western part of town underneath the road, and then subsequently flows through to Stock Beck. And I've got Councillor Mills indicating. Jane?
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I just can't believe that they say they don't have any notification of this. I mean, it was about a year ago when there was that one particular property that was having massive amount of flooding going into their cellar, and if it was in their backyard, you know, in their house, I'm sure they'd be wanting something doing pretty rapidly. And I just think it's astonishing that that it's an ongoing situation where, you know, you're contacting them, either you don't get a reply or they don't know anything about it, and it's just disgraceful, really. I'm sorry to say, but yeah, I'd be happy for it to be brought up again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further contribution on that? I think we know where we're going with it. So can we move on then? The unreliability of Transdev buses during peak travel to work periods. And this is an issue that's been raised in several quarters, where the Transdev buses are failing to come through, particularly at peak times. There are problems with school transport, problems with people getting to work, and I think we want a substantive report to the next meeting. So, and I do know that people wanted to contribute to the discussion tonight through the chat thing, which was unfortunately disabled earlier on. So can we resolve that we have a further report to the next meeting? In the meantime, we have a fact-finding mission from Transdev as to the number of services that have been late or cancelled, and in connection with school transport, what the occupancy is, and whether there is adequate capacity on the buses for pupils to be able to get to where they need to go. Jane.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick one on this from a kind of personal point of view. That my experience, the last bus leaves Skipton at 8 p.m. I do know there's quite a few people in Skipton, well, from Barnolds that work in Skipton in the hospitality trade and things. And to have a last bus going at 8 o'clock, the only kind of means getting from there really is to get a lift with someone, or to have a taxi, and the taxis are very expensive actually. You know, it's a long distance. It doesn't make it feasible to do that on a regular basis. So if there is somewhere that we could look into maybe having, you know, a bus sort of later on in the evening so people can actually commute. I mean, it would be better to have these buses running than to have all the cars on the road anyway. So, you know, if there's a way of looking into that, you know, I'll be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I've got councillors Tom Whip and Mike Goldthorpe. Just on that last point, though, the Transdev are very, I'll say, bloody-minded, and you know, they've turned round and within the last couple of weeks have said, if you want extra buses, you know, council can pay for them. So I suspect that we're on a bit of a hiding to nothing with that one, because they don't have any concept, or apparently don't have any concept of providing a service to people. I've got Tom, Mike, and I've got Jane indicating again.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I've been sort of irked by the sort of earliness that the buses stop going to Skipton. I mean, past 8, the only way that you can get public transport back to Barlick is going to Keighley, and then from Keighley to Colne, and then Colne back to Barlick, which will get you back, I think, is it 11 p.m? Which is sort of outrageous, really. It baffles that they could. I know it isn't the M1 anymore, but the late services in the regular Transdev buses, not the Whiz, could extend into Skipton and back, maybe just once in the evening. Something should be done, really.
Okay, can I make a further suggestion that we explore with the County Council if there is any opportunities for the County Council subsidising further services, and we include that in our report back. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think you were very kind with your words describing Transdev. I mean, for a transport company to be intransigent in terms of ignoring for the last 5 years at least, ever since they got rid of Pennine, buses out of Skipton, we failed. We've got nowhere whatsoever with the senior management, chief executives of Transdev about the situation of the timing of buses in West Craven. Totally unacceptable, but got nowhere. And if we remember, this area committee for a time actually funded the late buses in West Craven, and then it was transferred across to Pendle. And as soon as that was, stopped, back to the silly hours, and they just don't link up with the Skipton, particularly in normal times for the service industries, people working, commuting, and so forth. But we got nowhere, and I honestly believe you will get nowhere this time. There is a block at the top of the management of Transdev. And I find it totally unacceptable in the way that they've treated us, and had discussions with them personally. And it's just no move, whatever you try and do. So good luck with everything. But, I think your point is well made about seeing if there is any funding available out of LCC. But those late night buses are just, a nightmare, and we've got nowhere in the past, both from your involvement, Chairman, and our involvement. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Jane, you wanted to come back?
Yes, just on that point, I was going to sort of suggest to see if there was any funding, if that's what the sticking point is. I mean, is it the government that are not giving LCC money? Can we go cap in hand to the government and say, look, we've got issues, transport, we want a greener economy, greener environment, the government should be putting money in to get this transport infrastructure in place. So, is there another, sort of direction we can go with it?
Yeah. Can we consider that when we get a report back? I mean, there may be opportunities for national funding, and there have been some announcements recently. I think we all recognise that use of public transport is much lower than it has been previously, and that the bus companies themselves, and indeed the train operators, are struggling financially. But the government are putting some funding in. I'm not clear where that's going, so it's a good idea to see whether we can tap into any of that. Last word, Councillor Tomwick.
Thank you, Chair. Just like to say, if there is any representation made to government with cap in hand, I think it should say, if not a bus, then a train will do.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure that that'll go down terribly well in some parts of Earby, but on that note, can we resolve that we do ask for an initial response, we have a report back, we explore the opportunities with Lancashire County Council, and ask for investigations into national funding to help provide better services. We all agreed on that? Yep. Thank you very much. Now then, outstanding items, we have got one which has now been discussed at Policy Resources and at full council, and it's the impact of large-scale redundancies on me. What I'd like to suggest here is that committee, as best we can, tries to meet with local businesses, perhaps picking up one or two a month, obviously meeting virtually, to find out how businesses are managing the impact of the epidemic on their activities, and anything that we could possibly help in terms of making things happen where it's in our power, or any other assistance that they feel they need, which we may be able to field to others. Would committee be agreeable to do that? We'll try and set something up, invite all committee members, and we have a virtual meeting. I mean, ideally, I'd like to have one a week, but I suspect that we might struggle to sustain that. So that's my proposal. Mike, you're muted.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. But we should also try and interface with the Pendle Vision group, who most of Pendle's hierarchical businesses are represented there. And I think there's some information coming through from them, which could be useful. It was interesting last week when the figures were produced. 52% of Pendle's business is manufacturing.
Yeah.
And I must say, I attended the meeting last week, and there was quite a bullish response around a number of Silent Night people like that, who are actually waiting for stocks of materials to come in, and the order books are full and so forth. So it isn't all gloom and doom, but that certainly that forum I found very interesting indeed, listening to all of the big manufacturers that we've got in Pendle, some of which are obviously in West Craven. So yeah. I think we should try and link there somehow, get the data's been provided, and the estimations are that Pendle's has got somewhere between 15 and 19% decline. So that's got to be caught up somehow, and some of it won't be. But there are a lot of people with the data in that group, and I think that might be useful to get a background to what you want to do, Chairman.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of Silent Night, the purchase ledger department for Silent Night is the third part of the WIP household at the moment, and that's operated from the attic. So the attic has millions of pounds going through it of payments for goods and services. I mean, I just fear that furnishing companies could be in a boom and bust cycle. Yeah. A lot of people have redecorated. There's been money through furloughing. People have had time to do work at home, and my concern is that that's going to dry up. So, make hay while the sun shines, but we just need to be cognizant of the potential for the future. Mm-hmm. So I think any information that we can get from the Pendle Vision Board is very welcome. That's clearly looking at a Pendle-wide perspective. We are very much looking at meeting with individual West Craven businesses, and if we can get that underway in short order, we can see how far we can progress with that. Is there anybody else wanting to speak on this item? Else we'll go on to the next item, which is exclusion of press and public due to the confidential nature of the business that we've got to discuss in the following item. Mike, you're indicating you're not wanting to speak again, are you?
No.
Okay, so I would move exclusion of press and public, and that means that we'll be ending our live stream shortly. Can I thank all of the 10 people now watching for their persistence in watching this meeting and see us struggle through the agenda in the way that we have. And wish you well, and I hope to see you next time round. Thank you.